Welcome to Reddit Aliens. What is your scariest encounter with a wild animal? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. My ex and his friends used to live in an apartment on a small lake. One night I was visiting him and I was preparing to leave around 2 a.m. An effing beaver had climbed the stairs and was standing outside his door. I decided to stay the night. If you've never seen one in person, beavers are a lot larger than you would expect them to be. It really surprised me how big it was. Plus, they carry diseases, and if they can bite through trees, imagine what they could do to your bones. Was out for a pre-dawn jog on a rural road in north-central Pennsylvania and saw what I thought was a big dog several hundred feet ahead. Slowed down because, a big dog, but then realized it was actually a black bear. They say you're not supposed to run away from bears, but I turned and ran as fast and as far as I could. When I finally turned around to look, it was nowhere in sight. Phew! Scared me shitless, and I never ventured out on rural roads to run again. Was swimming at the beach as a child, and a big dark shadow swims past me, which I assume is an adult, until I poke my head out of the water to see everyone looking past me and running out of the sea. Whipped my head around and started panic paddling back to shore. Effing gargantuan sea lion was a few feet away. This is the dumbest thing that's happened to me involving a wild animal, lol. Traveled to a place that was known for its extremely friendly, extremely food-aggressive deer. Mistakenly had some biscuits in my coat pocket. Deer came up to me. Deer wanted said biscuits. Ran around screaming while the stupid-ass deer chased me around trying to eat my damn jacket. Had to climb up onto a ledge to get away from it. Didn't realize until I looked that the ledge looked over a straight drop down to the ocean. Nearly shat myself. Had to straddle the concrete and hold on for dear life while the biscuit thief kept pushing me with its head. Eventually it left me alone, but not before an entire class of students on a field trip walked by and started laughing. Never feeding the wildlife again. TL, DR. Almost effing fell into the ocean and died because a deer wanted to eat me. Man, I have a few terrifying stories from my time in the Peace Corps in Suriname. The first one that comes to mind is the wild boars. I was in a Native American village in the rural interior. It was rainy season, and two small bridges between our village, another village about 10 kilometers away, had washed out. The captain, chief of my village, asked me to go with him to take photos so we could send them to the local government for assistance. I had a digital camera, and this was back in the day before camera phones were very popular. We took a van to the first washed out crossing and waded through the water. On the other side, there was another van from the neighboring village waiting to take us and the school children to the next washed out bridge. The van was stuck on the piece of road between the two washed out points. During the ride there, another small bridge partially collapsed under the van and we were stuck. No one was hurt, but with just the captain, 3 school children under the age of 14, the driver and myself, there was no way we were going to get the van back up. So the children and driver continued on foot to their village, and the captain and I turned around and started the approximately 5-kilometer trek to our village. As we walked down the deserted jungle road, the captain started to hear something. He said quietly, "Stop." He listened for a second and then told me, "Walk faster." Wild boar were following us through the jungle. It was terrifying. We made it back to the washed out bridge and waded across the creek, which was named Aboma Creeky, or Anaconda Creek, for those of you who aren't fluent in Sarantongo. Honestly, I haven't eaten pork since that day. I figured if those pigs didn't eat me, the least I could do is stop eating pig. But bacon? When I was a kid, my brothers and neighbors would play flashlight tag, think hide and seek plus tag at night, in a field between our homes that had some wooded areas on the side. The whole field and the small wooded areas were fair game to hide in. It was a small Midwestern town, so it was less dangerous than it might sound. I was a little kid at this time, then was walking alone at some point when I shined my light into some trees and saw 2 big eyes looking straight at me. Nothing else, just the eyes in between the trees. They were not human eyes, and they must have been 6 or so feet off the ground. I stopped, stared, then screamed all the way home. Child me thought for sure it was the devil or something, but in hindsight, that area had a fairly healthy deer population, and I assume I saw a deer. I sometimes think back and realize that I basically accepted that the demon would get my brothers and friends as I ran home. Whoops. I was out for a run on a trail in the fall 6 years ago. I came up to an old logging road, and in the corner of my eye I see this black dog run up the road. I stopped and then looked to my right and see this other black dog just standing there staring at me with its head slightly down. Me being the person I am, I start walking toward it, thinking it was someone's dog. Then I clued in and realized that it was a wolf. I backed up and moved slowly. The whole time it was just watching me as I backed away. As soon as I got far back enough, it slowly trotted up the road. Beautiful creature, but it definitely gave me a bit of a scare. When I was 13, we were camping on the west coast of Vancouver Island with our Chihuahua Schnauzer mix. Super cool little dude who had just recovered from being run over. Well, super cool little dude ran about 30 feet down the trail in front of me. It got jumped by a cougar. We heard him screaming and ran around the bend to see this cat crushing his skull while he twitched uncontrollably. That was 35 plus years ago, and I remember it like it was yesterday. The conservation officers came out the next day with a few hounds and tracked the cat down and shot it. It was 6 months old and had been separated from its parents, so it was on the verge of starvation when our dog came along. That was pretty freaky. Less freaky and more funny was the time I got carjacked by a baboon in South Africa. On a scale of 1 to 10, how foolish was this? When I was in Boy Scouts, we went camping at Brazos Bend State Park. Around this time of year, resident alligators would catch many a ray sunbathing. Well, my fellow scouts and I stumbled across a 10 to 15 foot alligator on the banks of the lake. We assumed lifeless, but not, because park rangers placed plastic orange construction fence around it. Well, being an avid fan of Steve Irwin and having the raging hormones of a teen that just busted nut, decided it was still dead or fake. With backing of my friends and stupidity, I crawl down to the bank and reach for tail. Instantaneously, the crocodile whips its head back for a strike, but behold, I was saved by the orange barrier. To say I was scared shitless would be an overstatement, but goddamn, that adrenaline rush was the tits. I was hiking a relatively busy trail out in the mountains near Las Vegas, middle of the day. Lots of people with dogs. We were a few switchbacks from the end when my partner and I looked across a deep canyon and saw a big brown kitty making its way toward us. Right out in the open, absolutely no F's given. That's not how mountain lions are supposed to act. We hustled back down the trail and told the rangers at the station, who seemed to have an equal lack of F's about a cougar that was habituated to humans. Made the missing hiker sign we saw at a nearby trailhead a lot spookier. I got mauled by a pretty huge dog that my uncle owned when I was around 9 or 10 years old. I managed to get out of it with just some scratches and minor bite wound on my arm. Thankfully, I was wearing some reasonably thick layers of clothing. It scared the shit out of me though. I had no clue just how vicious and terrifying a bit dog can be when it decides that it doesn't like you. I definitely had a mild phobia of dogs for a few years afterwards because of that experience. Me, my brother, and a family friend were riding bikes down a trail. It was a big trail, so cars could go down it too. So we're all riding our bikes. Then some guy pulls up in his car and rolls down his window and says, "Hey, do you guys know where there's a mountain lion following you, right?" Our family friend said, "No, but thank you for telling us." So the car drove off, and he took us home as fast as possible. Told my parents what happened, then went to his house across the street. I picked up a baby coral snake on the sidewalk because I didn't want it to get stepped on. I just acted without thinking, but the moment it was in my hands, my blood ran cold, my heart stopped, and I think I heard my brain screech and break at the same time with the sudden realization of my stupidity. Thankfully, the cute little danger noodle was chill and let me safely relocate it. Absolutely stupid of me though. So stupid. The second incident I can think of is the time I almost shanked an owl. I heard someone or something creeping around my family member's house. I went to investigate while armed with my knife, and my blood ran cold as I saw this bright, ghostly shape glide by me. I almost struck it, but thankfully realized at the last second that it was a very big barn owl. Damn thing scared the hell out of me, but I'm so incredibly thankful that I didn't hurt it. They're such cool birds. Walking on a trail in Glacier National Park, catch something in the corner of my eye, grizzly bear, just standing there in the woods watching us, maybe 15 to 20 feet away. Just told my wife and son to keep walking quickly. They were like, "Why? What's up?" And then they saw the big guy. Bear sauntered out onto the trail after we went past him. One of the rangers in the park said that probably half the hikers in Glacier walk within 100 feet of a bear and never realize it. Hard to narrow it down to just one. I've had dozens of spooky happenings with animals, so I'll share the one that was the most startling and funny. I was elk hunting when I was around 13 or 14. I was sneaking in on a clearing. We were there, and there were some elk feeding. I was belly crawling up to a spot where I could get a shot over a log that was laying on the ground. I took my time and creeped right up to the log. Then I raised up to look over the log and was met with a loud and heart-stopping chatter and fury, mad demon charging at my face. I jumped back and rolled over backwards. Needless to say, the elk ran off. It took a moment to sort out just what happened. When I raised up, I came nose to nose with a chipmunk that was running down the log, and we gave each other quite a start. It started barking and jumping about 5 inches in front of my nose. This happened so fast, I was startled and sprung back to get away from this furry demon that's gone ballistic in front of me. I roll over backwards onto my back. Once I came up again, I had to laugh because it was funny. Screwed up a good hunt, but got a good laugh out of it. That little bastard nearly gave me a heart attack. That was over 40 years ago, and I still laugh about it today. My hometown in Connecticut is known for black bears. I came home from work once when I was in my early 20s and my family was all telling me that I had just missed a bear that came to the front door. So I decided I'd drive around the neighborhood to try to find it. I got out of the car a few neighborhoods over and walked around trying to find the bear. Then it came straight out in front of me and walked across the street. I didn't know if it had baby bears with it, and I didn't realize how dumb of a move it was until I was scared shitless 10 feet from a black bear. I got a great photo, but ran away and back into my car and drove away as quickly as possible. Not as impressive as some, but mine was definitely listening to a pack of coyotes that was either fighting another pack of coyotes or tearing apart a den of foxes just across the lake from my campsite at about midnight. I've heard coyotes before and since, and they often sound creepy, but never anything quite as violent as that night. And the way sound carries over the water, even though they were half a mile away, it sounded like about 100 yards. Recreational drug use and nature? Seems good to me. Got too stoned while I was through hiking the Colorado Trail. About 40 miles left of the trail, I took a few edibles and got into my tent early to rest my feet. Right before I was about to pass out, I heard some crazy hissing noises. I thought it was just the edible, but after a few minutes of it, I realized this shit is real. I slowly opened up my vestibule and saw 3 deer, and I shit you not, they didn't get spooked one bit, and they just hissed at me, which would be weird for deer that are used to people, but we were 40 miles from any town. Anyways, they ate my hammock, and I hope those sons of hissing bitches enjoyed it. So many old scout stories to choose from. Okay, take this one. We were boulder hopping at Joshua Tree with some of the new kids, and through a series of unfortunate events, ended up being cornered by a rattler with our backs to a drop-off. We had some 550 paracord that we used to slowly rappel the younglings down first. It was only 10 or so feet, but we're trying to keep them from flipping out. All was going well until my dumbass friend began throwing goldfish at the goddamn snake, which only made it aggressive, and it started to poke its head out towards us. Ended up saying, "F the line, rest of the kids are already down there, so I'm just gonna jump it." Looking back, there are so many other ways we could have avoided or handled the situation. But hey, it's a fun memory, and we were dumb kids, lol. Respect nature and her wildlife, kids. I lived in Arizona when I was 21 and worked in Fountain Hills, a smallish town in the northeast mountain range of Phoenix. Anyway, there are quite a bit of mountain lions in that area. One night I was leaving work and heard what sounded like a screaming person in the distance. Now mind you, Fountain Hills is extremely quiet and dark at night, and walking out of work in the pitch black, hearing what sounds like literally a woman getting stabbed and screaming for help really catches you off guard. I got into my car and sped out of there. I had no idea what it was until I got home and Googled it and found a video on YouTube that sounded identical to what I heard was a mountain lion. Eased my nerves a little bit, but still creeps me out when I think about it. Not me, but my dad. He was on a camping trip in this fishing area with my younger brothers, my uncle, and one of my grandpa's friends, and a family friend and his son. An effing mama bear and 2 cubs came really close to their camp and just stayed there for a while. They backed away and eventually the bears left, but this was the experience they were awake for. A few years later, they were at the same fishing grounds, and early in the morning, a bear came right next to the tent and ate their fish. Surprisingly, my dad and brother were asleep despite the loud noises and yells. Thankfully, no one was hurt, and the bear left them alone after eating a bit of their catch. I was so relieved when they came back after hearing about the bear. I'm a little surprised he still goes camping there despite the incidents with the bears. I would be too scared to go at all. Out of the frying pan and into the fire for this hiker. There is a trail I like to hike in the Pima Canyon. If you check Yelp, you can read comments about the bees. A swarm of bees took over a section of the trail, but I always hiked early enough that the cool air kept them in the hive when I was passing by. As spring progressed and the days got warmer faster, I hiked this trail at 6:30 in the morning and suddenly found myself being buzzed by bees. I took off running up the trail while stripping off backpack, jacket, and hat at the same time. Luckily, I didn't get stung. I decided to start my hike earlier the next day, so I arrived at the trailhead at 5 a.m. and there was no other soul around. I was the first on the trail that morning. When I reached the point on the trail where the bees were located, I stopped for a moment to ready myself as I intended to haul ass past the hive, whether they were active or not. With a burst of speed, I ran past that spot and around the bend where I ran up on a mountain lion in the middle of the trail. My sudden appearance that early in the day must have surprised the cat, because it took off in a flash, crashing through the brush to get away while I skidded to a stop and tried to relax my sphincter. My scariest encounter was during a hike up near Hurricane Ridge in Olympic National Park after the sun went down. I was pretty sure I was being stalked by something. I kept hearing it behind me off to the left side of the trail. At one point, I heard as it moved up ahead of me and moved over to the right side of the trail. I had a flashlight with me and I took a picture of a paw print on the trail in that spot that was wider than my own print. Found out later it was a mountain lion. Not sure if it was a fresh or not, if that's what I heard, but I never went hiking alone or after dark after that.